So it's wonderful to meet both of you. I just wanted to start by asking both of you to perhaps sort of chip in on the next question, because I know this is pressing global issues are very much something that is close to your heart. So I'd like to just start by asking you to sort of talk about maybe a couple of issues that concern you the most and why that is.
Well, I think basically we start with the premise that we think the moral challenge of this century, of our time basically, is gender inequity, is the brutality that so many women around the world face, mainly because they are women. One of the things that I care a lot about is how we can all help empower women economically. I saw that in China. We saw that in many places around the world. And the one story that we talk about that is dear to my heart in Half the Sky is about a woman in a tiny village outside Lahore, Pakistan. She basically got a $65 microloan and created an embroidery business and became the local tycoon to the point where she was hiring her husband too. You really can transform women, their families, and everyone around them.
Do you share many of the same issues as Sheryl? I mean, I know that you've also written extensively on international issues, critical international issues like Darfur, women's development, bringing an end to and highlighting issues of slavery and bonded labor and so on and so forth.
Right.
What do you think, first of all, though, about the importance of women's development? I mean, is this a particular concern?
One of the things that we learned, I think, when we lived in Asia was that if you tried to figure out what the common thread was among the different economic models, that one was that those Asian countries that had enjoyed a boom had really figured out how to take young women who previously had contributed negligibly to the economy and had had fairly low productivity, educated them, developed that human capital, and then saw a huge boom as they expanded that formal labor force. One of the lessons for us really was that the remedy to so many of the problems around the world have to do with education, and that in particular you get a huge amount of bang for the buck by educating girls. I think one of the frustrations for me has been to go to Pakistan, for example, and see madrasas all over. And the lesson you get is that you have fundamentalists who believe passionately in the transformative power of education and invest in that, and you don't see an equivalent number of schools, for example, that we have financed. You don't get the sense that we share that same passion for education, and we sure should.
But it's interesting at the same time when we are talking about investing in women, because if you invest in women, they'll make sure that their children are healthy and their children will grow up to invest in the economy and so on and so forth, and it goes on and on. But yet when you look at education and you look at just some of the recent issues around Afghanistan and Pakistan also, girls' schools being attacked, burnt to the ground, women's colleges being recently attacked in Pakistan as well. How do we, people in this room, address those kinds of issues? If this is something that is desperately close to our own hearts, how do we bring that out into the fore, and how can we, as individuals, affect any kind of change?
Well, first of all, education can be done in many different ways. I mean, you don't have to have a brick-and-mortar school that's very visible. But secondly, even if one or two or a handful are taken out, that doesn't mean you stop the entire program. You still need to educate. Obviously, the net, you need a net number to keep going ahead. So education still is the long-term solve, but also important is the idea of bringing women into the labor force and letting them play productive roles in society. So the education isn't enough, but it's a good start.
I would just add that there clearly are risks in Afghanistan and Pakistan. There have been attacks on schools, but I think there's a danger of us psyching ourselves out. I mean, CARE has more than 200 schools in Afghanistan. Not one has been burned down. DIL has lots of school developments and literacy, has lots of schools in Pakistan that are working very well, even in difficult areas. Greg Mortensen's operations, all his schools are still functioning. Not one has been burned down. Yeah. So it's difficult, but it's not impossible.
Right, and both of you have written a book together, just very briefly. How do you think that it's influencing the dialogue around development? What kind of response have you had?
Well, we hope that it's reflecting a lot of the new change in thinking about development, and we just hope that it engages a broad mass of people.
I think that there really is a tipping point on this issue, and that traditionally women's issues, if you will, were regarded as soft and peripheral and worthy, but not so substantive. And I think that has changed, and there is a perception that just at a practical level, if you want to grow an economy, if you want to fight poverty, if you want to fight terrorism, bring more security, then the most cost-effective way of doing that is to educate girls, bring women into the formal economy, and watch a virtuous cycle unfold.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, congratulations and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay.